Hi, everybody, and once again, welcome to Coffee with Craig. This is where I give my insights as a psychic about topical events and world events, and some of my thoughts and predictions about the future. So I'll be reviewing some of the predictions I've already made just recently. We'll have a look into that. I'll tell you a few new predictions. And we're making these predictions on the 13th of April, 2023. So, welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, hi again, folks, and I'm glad hopefully some of you have caught me live today. I see a few of you coming in. I'm going to make a few predictions and tell you a few things about my thoughts about current events that are happening in the world. So they do these Coffee with Craigs, they do kind of go a bit sort of randomly, don't they? I mean, you never know when it can happen, so you have to follow the channel. So don't forget to follow the channel, and then you'll hopefully get an update quick enough when you're available to drop in and ask me some questions. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that have been happening in the world at the moment, and also I've got my new Coffee with Craig mugs. I don't know if you've ever seen those. You can always get one of those so you can sit and have a cup of coffee and enjoy watching me here, or even have one of those cups of coffee as you curl up with one of my books where I talk about all the mysteries of existence and so forth. Anyway, let's go and get them on Amazon. That's the plug. Right. Okay. So lots happening at the moment in the press as usual. And one of the most interesting, I suppose, from my point of view, things that have happened recently is the kind of the scandal over the Dalai Lama, particularly since we were hoping to do a program on Friday with the lovely people that have recently made the program about the Dalai Lama, but we've postponed that until some of this is settled down. Now, I mean, okay, whatever your opinion might be of that, whatever. I mean, I'm more interested in the fact that the timing of the release of this, actually, because this happened a while ago, and I just get the feeling that this was released and there's someone's who's behind it, who released it. And I get the sense that China's had something to do with this. And it's like it's like one more of these things where they try to undermine the confidence of the West and the rest of the world, really. I mean, because these sort of things think, oh God, even the Dalai Lama's got problems, and then we get the same problems with the Pope, and we get problems with lots of things that undermine society. I think, to be honest, they started off as good movements, woke and a Me Too movement and this inclusiveness thing, but then it's all turned into something that is not really what it was intended to be in the first place. And I think there's a lot of political maneuvering going on in the background. So why now? Well, my thoughts are, and I've been talking about this for a while, I've been talking about this 2, 3 years, 5 years, actually. I first spoke about this. I talked about the danger of Taiwan and what would happen with Taiwan. Could it be that they're about to do something now? It's going to happen very shortly. I was interested to see that they had sirens playing in Japan. Because of an alert, a nuclear possible attack alert, just yesterday. And you imagine being Japanese, excuse me, clear my throat. You imagine being Japanese after Nagasaki and Hiroshima and the horrors that, you would have learned about at school and many people still got living memories of. The horrors of that, and the sudden fear that there was a nuclear warhead heading towards you, because that's what happened today, or yesterday rather, and a lot when North Korea fired another intercontinental ballistic missile that just stopped just before Japan. This is something else I predicted. Do you remember? I said that when the conflict starts to become very intense with Taiwan, North Korea would be the one that would start to make things even worse. It's like somebody, a naughty boy, throwing a match into the fireworks. You know, they've got build-ups there at the moment with maneuvers or whatever they call them, you know, happening, military exercises happening on Chinese side of the border, and America doing this sort of thing in Philippines and so forth. So we have really tense situation. And what does Kim Jong-un do? Fires another missile, you know, attention grabbing Kim Jong-un, wanting attention on himself and wanting to see that look like he's the kingpin. So this is creating a great deal of problems, and that was something I talked about, that this would happen. And that makes me wonder, was that what I was seeing? Is that what I was seeing? One of the things. Remember, I'm also talked about a collision of some sort. I don't think it was the air balloon. We talked about this last month. I think it was something more to do with we're going to get something like possibly 2 submarines hitting each other, or an airplane collision of some sort. That would be a really major trigger for all this. So those things are, I think, still yet to happen. Some of you said, "Oh, it's happened, Craig. It's happened," but no, I don't think so yet. This is. I think these things are yet to happen, and this, I think, will start to, you know, throw petrol on the fire of the problems that are happening between Taiwan, China, and of course the rest of the world that deals with Taiwan, who most of us would see as its own separate country. So what will happen to Japan, for example? One of the predictions I made some while ago is that Japan would eventually become a nuclear armed power. First, it would take on American weapons. And I don't know if American weapons have been sent there, but I saw American nuclear weapons going into Japan. And eventually I saw them creating their own. And if Japan do this, I feel they could turn it around very, very fast. They're a high-tech country with some of the best technical minds there that I'm sure could create a nuclear defense system very, very quick. Sad, because the Japanese people are very, very resistant to this idea because of the horrors of the past. So that's a sad thing. And same too, we're seeing in Australia them buying submarines which are not nuclear capable at the moment, but could easily become nuclear capable. So we're seeing some very serious situations, and some of which Donald Trump has been highlighting. So the build-up's happening as I predicted 2 years ago. 5 years ago, I started talking about this. I also spoke, and I spoke a bit last week again, I see a cultural revolution happening eventually in China, and a full-on revolution happening in China eventually, with the fall of Xi Jinping, and also a re-establishment of democracy, of a sort of Chinese democracy in China, based upon the teachings of Yet Sen, who's been through the mediumship of Jane and myself with some of the family there. So with those things in mind, what's going to happen? And I have spoken also about a trade war with China. Now we got Meteoron from, I pronounce his name right, from France out there causing problems, really, because I mean, these people, when you think about it, it's cynical, really. It's like you're looking after your own interests. You know, we don't care about the rest of the world. We just want to do trade with China, you know, so we go independently to try to do trade with China. We want to be in their good books. We want to sup up to the bully, you know, because let's face it, China is a bully. It's bullied Tibet. Tibet was never part of China. In fact, Tibet used to actually, at one point in its history, even took Peking when the wars between Tibet and China in the far past. So, you know, the French are out there now, you know, still thinking, look at the trouble they caused in Vietnam. That was French Indochina, wasn't it? and that all the problems that they cause there, they seem to still sort of have this idea that France is still an imperial power in some ways and has influence and wants influence in that part of the world, I think. And again, it's a kind of a bit of distraction from the problems of things at home, where Mitterrand's not looking very happy and very good with his votes and things like that. There's a strong resistance to him and riots in his own country. So these are the predictions that I'd already made before, but I'm just pointing out really that some of the things I've said are starting to happen, and it does concern me, and I think eventually we will have to ignore self-interests, won't we? And we'll have to do things in the interest of what is better for what we have left of democracy, and these things will eventually happen. So I'm seeing the conflict building again. I'm seeing the problems occurring there in China and Taiwan, and I think I did predict that it would be this year, and I was predicting around about October time. So we seem to be seeing a build up to those sort of things at the moment. Meanwhile, here in the UK, we got Joe Biden having given some very helpful talks. He talked about the black and tans, which I think was a lovely little gaffe. Generally comparatively well received, I think, because he's taken a middle ground on many of the troubles in Northern Ireland. I think often Americans have had a very misguided understanding of the Irish problem that we had in the past. And although he's talking about he's talking about he's going to stand in the presidency for 2024. So again, is this another cynical politician just wanting to make sure he makes sure the voters remember that I'm Irish, because there's a big Irish voting public in America, lots of people who like to think they're Irish descendants, and like I say, that's kind of a romantic sort of appeal. People vote with their emotions very often, so I think he's working on this. So I think this in some respects is a bit of cynical sort of vote gathering here. I don't think he will make it to stand ultimately. I'm interested in that Kennedy that's coming back in, but I'll have a talk about him another time. I don't think he will make it to the 2024 to stand. He's going to be out of power. I keep saying that, and I feel it's going to happen soon. So it's interesting what's going on. And just keeping on that for a while. So let me just say, there's a few things. Let me just see where I stand on the predictions on this first of all. So I see a further conflicts now in Taiwan at the moment. Some things going to be blowing up very shortly, and I think we're going to see some serious events. I just get them in the bones very shortly. I feel there's going to be some problems there. There will eventually be a trade war. I've talked about this before, a blockade of China. That's not quite yet. I think that's come out. This is all kind of the process of it unfolding. And I see it there in the news. And it makes me wonder, what I'm getting right here, And then I've also jumped a bit really to the American elections and things like this. One other thing I see, Trump is suing Cohen, right? That was his attorney from the past. Again, this is a bit cynical as well, because I think what he's doing, and this is what I think is going to happen with there, Trump is going to, by suing Cohen, I think he's being able to kick the ball down the pitch, as it were, when it comes to his own court hearings, because Cohen is one of the main people that's going to speak out against Trump. If he's already indicted for something else and being that case has got to be sorted out before we can sort the Trump case out, maybe we can push that down beyond the 2024 elections, and by that time I'm president, and if I'm president, it's going to be a lot more difficult to keep these proceedings going. So I think it's it could be a bit of a delay tactic, and that's my feeling with that. And as I've said before, there's a lot more going to come out very soon on the laptops the Biden laptops. This has been held back, and I get the feeling people are scrambling in the background to get this information out there. And the stuff that people know, and that might be in that recent leak. We've just had some recent leaks of American secrets and things. They went through a gambling site or something crazy, wasn't it? Maybe there's more coming out. Maybe there's something very heavily political. And why now? You know, it goes back to the Dalai Lama thing. Why now? Is it because there's preparations going on in the background for something much, much bigger? You know, that's what my feeling is. Something much, much bigger. These are all kind of things that kind of undermine people's confidence in themselves, which is exactly what we want if we're getting to a state of potential war. I think Trump will win in 2024, but he won't be in jail, as some have suggested, but he might be under such heavy litigation of legal stuff. This is where I see that he's going to do something with, a second in command who will be a black female who will kind of front things. So these are kind of me talking now as I'm seeing things kind of unfold from things I've already said. I know a lot of you follow me and sort of talk about some of the stuff that I've sent you, send me emails and things like that. And so, I'm just thinking around some of those things. I did get another one recently correct last month. Well, I said it a couple of times earlier, actually, but this was when you asked me about Harry and Meghan coming to the King's coronation. And I said last month, if you go and look at last month's video, categorically, I said, well, Harry will come, but Meghan won't. And she'll make the excuse that she's got to stay at home with the kids. Right. And that's kind of exactly as it's happened, which made me also think a little bit more about some of the royal predictions that I have for you now. I said about Charles would have a short reign. You remember when I was talking about Charles? And it's kind of come to me now, and I feel what he's going to do. I think he will eventually abdicate. It might be 10 years or less that he would do that, because I think he'll just get to the point where he's had enough of it all. He's had enough of the whinging of the Harrys of this world, the troubles that he's got with Andrew, the problems he has with having to be so much more inclusive than he's been used to. And I think he's got a sort of a depression. That's what I've said before. I think he's got a bit of a depression in the background. And I think this will eventually catch up with him. And I think he'll actually also think, I had to wait all my life before I could be king. What if I had been king as a young man? What would I have done? I'd have done so much for the world and the environment and so forth. And I think he might say, I think I'm going to give William a chance. I let him become king. And I can go back to the things that I most enjoy, which is being a bit of a loose cannon when it comes to things about the environment and these type of things. And because I can't speak out, and for him, it's going to be very difficult. So I see that as something for the future. I did say that there was also be problems around Andrew with his mental health. Now, that's nothing been revealed about that at the moment, because I saw him having depression, very serious form of depression. But now we've got a real growing row about where Andrew's going to live. For him, it's quite humiliating to have to be moved to Frogmore House, isn't it? Apparently, Victoria hated the place because it was just filled with so many frogs. Well, anyway, that's good, because one more frog amongst them won't do any harm, will it? But Andrew, I think, is going to become quite difficult with Charles over this, and Charles is going to dig his heels in. He's not going to have any of it. He's going to say, right, you're out, mate. You're going to go there. I think Charles is going to have to be and will be quite strong once the coronation's out the way. I think we're going to see quite a different attitude from him, where he's having to become a lot more strict with the Harrys of this world, and with Andrew, and with many of the other possible hangers-on within the royal family. It will be streamlined, because he'll be realised, and he's probably been told this, that you're going to have to, actively cut back. We can't have a royal family that is seen to waste money. When when William has finished his reign, that's the time because I don't see Scotland breaking from the United Kingdom in my lifetime. But when I think at the end of William's reign, when William has finished his reign, and there is no more royal family after that, I think that is the time we may see the breakup of the United Kingdom. I think it would be enormously damaging. And in that far, far distant time, I'm seeing also a time when Britain, England particularly, has become very much more integrated with America, and may even ultimately be so merged with America in a new sort of economic kind of like a new common market, Euro Union, but with other countries, that England and America will be almost indistinguishable. But this is a long way ahead. This is right at the end of William's reign. This is as I understand this. I also had another. I had some dreams. All right. Okay. Last week I went on a bit too much about my dream, I think. So I'm not going to tell you too much this time. I thought I re-listened to it and thought, oh God, that was a bit boring for people. I'm nothing worse than listening to someone's dreams. But anyway, it was interesting because one of them I think has happened. But also I had another dream. And this is one, another prediction for you. I saw a famous footballer. I couldn't make out who it was, who has a life-changing injury. I see a life-changing injury happening to a football player. I dreamed that this morning, and just before I planned to do this, so I have to share it with you. I don't know who it was. Sorry, and I don't like to be a fearmonger like this, but that's what I saw in my dream. Okay, but you remember I had that other strange dream I talked about with Gordon Brown and Scotland and corruption in Scotland, and I was dreaming about and bugs and something being revealed. Well, I think that dream makes sense now to me, because what happened, of course, is Nicola Sturgeon is all over the press at the moment here in the UK, because those from America that don't know who she is, she was the kind of the main leader, I suppose, of the Scots, as it were, as a wants to break from England and so forth. Well, she suddenly to power. Now her husband is being accused of all sorts of financial, I think it's going to probably be problems where they use funds wrongly, quite substantial amounts of funds wrongly, for the wrong purpose, for their own personal use in many respects. So it's a huge scandal. It's a big corruption thing. And that whole dream, if you look back at it again, is all about the idea of someone being found out in Scotland, because that's where Gordon Brown came from. Scotland. It's the Scotland thing. I said at the time on the actual video, I said, is this something to do with Scotland and Nicola Sturgeon? So that looks like that's happened. And I did say, if you look back at some of my videos I did about Scotland, I did some videos about at the time when salmon was still around, and I said about salmon and sturgeon are both going to go the same way, and are going to both be removed from power for corruption, which kind of happened in a way. So I'm going to say that I think that Nicola Sturgeon is much more deeper into this than the press are making out. I think ultimately she will stand trial as well. She will stand trial for corruption, and I feel that's what I'm sensing, that there's more to this than meets the eye, and this is going to be another one of the main things that's going to be happening, and it's something I spoke about last month, right? So also I had another feeling that something's another sort of, I suppose, just a feeling at the moment, just a premonition of some sort, but it's not fully formed in my mind yet. But I just have a feeling something big's going to happen in India very soon, perhaps in the next month. Something big happening in India. But it's so vague. I'm sorry, but it's just that I have a feeling. It's feeling that it's coming, and I probably have more on this later. Sometimes these things come. I start to get a feeling about something. I don't see it clearly, and then suddenly it becomes clear. Sometimes the events make it clear, but there's just the feeling about India. I had the same thing about Turkey, but then that turned out to be not what I expected. I thought there was a war or something going to happen in Turkey, but it turned out it was the earthquakes. Now, I'm not saying it's earthquakes in India, but there's something about India that I'm feeling is bad. Okay, it's a bit of a foreboding feeling about that. Okay, and also Ukraine. There's a few thoughts about that. I get the sense here that just as we're starting to see the major changes about to happen in Taiwan, we're also going to see a big advance in Ukraine, and I'm seeing Crimea hit. Now, I just seeing it's like once before I said about they take a ship down, and they did. And this time I see it again. I see ships going down. I'm seeing divers putting bombs on ships, and it's being done clandestinely. It's being done by spies or saboteurs, and I'm seeing ships sinking. So is Ukraine got something planned? And I saw Polish planes. So could it have been an air attack even? So I get the sense that there's going to be an advance and a sudden strike that is going to have major humiliation for the Russians with this, because it's sudden, it's quick, and it's quite large in the way it works. So that's one of the other things I sense. And just finally, also the Middle East, actually, things are boiling up there a bit. And I did say this was going to happen earlier at the beginning of last year. I said this about this. And I said that ultimately we're going to see a strike against Iran. There is problems happening already in Lebanon. We're seeing strikes against Lebanon, I think, happened. That's, you quite often get this. When I worked on a kibbutz in Israel, you see the fighter jets would fly over our head and break the sound barrier and make us all leap out of our skin. But I get the sense there's going to be more there. So this is just something I'm getting the sense of the feeling of emerging things, you see. So I don't get it all right. I don't see it all. I see it through a mirror darkly. I often say it that. I love that phrase. I think it from the Bible, through a glass darkly. And it is kind of the way I see those things. And those are things that are emerging. Okay, well, I've shared quite a bit of what my initial thoughts were. There's my notes. Let's have a look what your questions are. Now, I haven't had a chance to be able to follow all your questions yet, so I'm just going to bring some of you guys in. Okay, now remember, I don't see everything, but if I spot something here that I think is so lots of you still hope for Scottish independence, and I have talked about the idea that there would be a British Isles as a country, that we'd even one day see Ireland tied in. Like I say, I think there's going to be something that will happen in the future that joins us all together, but it's also under a bigger auspice of some sort, because it involves also English-speaking countries. Actually, this is something I spoke about before. I'd come in here on the Harry and things. I think he'll learn that he will have to be tougher after the coronation. I think Harry will be divorced and taken to the cleaners. And this is something I have said before. Ultimately, the marriage of Meghan and Harry will result in divorce. This is something I've spoken about. Those of you who followed this quite some time ago, Jane said the same thing too, both in the Coffee with Craig's here and in our Craig and Jane show on Friday, which you must come and see on Friday. Jane it's probably just going to be me, actually, because Jane looks like she's got flu at the moment. So as long as I escape it by Friday, we should be all right. We've got comments about things. Joe Biden has no idea. Let's go and watch him. He's always confused. Yeah, black and tans. What a thing to say. I think you're talking about rugby or something. I haven't seen it. I love watching the Australians have a go at people over there from some of their news channels. Yeah, I think Taiwan ultimately, although there's this huge build-up, I don't see Taiwan being taken over. I think it will be safeguarded. I just see it's a big crisis. It's going to build and build and build, and I think there will be exchanges. There will be military exchanges, but I don't think it'll go to the absolute brink. That's my feeling, and it's going to affect a lot of the surrounding countries. It's going to affect the whole stability of that area. It's going to affect Japan's attitude to the world. It's going to affect India's attitude to the world. And when we see Macron going over there, and I called him Mitterrand, didn't I? Very blimey. When we see Macron over there going over there and having those sort of trade deals are going to change a lot in the future. We're going to take on China. What's this? Hello, Craig. According to scientists' graphs of rising sea level, is it true that South London could be flooded within a decade, along with some other places? I actually remember long years ago having a dream of London being flooded. When I was a child, I remember having that dream, and it was right up to the rooftops. So I would have thought it probably could, definitely. I'll just grab a few more comments. Thank you. Anybody says I'm amazing, I'll put all those ones up. Thanks a lot, guys. Putin, as I've said, I think he's going to be on the way out too. I don't see him. This may be what will cause the final ending of the conflict with Ukraine and so forth, because I think Putin will eventually be taken from power. He has illness, but it will be a combination of both an illness that takes him, and while he's weak, he'll be taken out. By the way, I'm Taiwanese. Thank you for your continued attention to us. May Asia become more democratic and free. Yes, may. And Taiwan really is a country we should be looking to as a great example, really, of what China could be. You know, what could China be if it was more like Taiwan? With that type of system, I mean, Taiwan became economically prosperous far before China did, and for a little country, it's done exceptionally well, hasn't it? I see picking up on the Scottish independence. Some don't, some want it, some don't. Okay, I think I'm going to finish there, actually, because there's so many questions coming in. Will Macron fall from power? France is a mess. And this was, you remember, I also said there would be riots in France and Germany. I said it's not happened in Germany yet. But I said this earlier on, some time back. And I said that, we're going to see something in France where we had the yellow vests. We got all the pension arguments at the moment. So lots of social unrest happening. But this, to me, shows an underlying social instability in France. You know, France is a very, I can say, restless country, really. You know, it was the first country to really give us a modern day revolution. I mean, Britain had a revolution before China, but it set the whole tone of the modern world, the revolution in China, in China, that'll do it too, in France. And I think that mentality is still there in France. And I think it's brewing. And I think there's going to be, Macron will go. Yeah, he will go from power. Yeah, he will go. And I think he'll be taken out reasonably soon. I don't see him being around very long. And I think Le Pen actually will one day be in power in France. She will, France will move much more right wing. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, because I don't like any of these extremes. It seems that we have to have always division, don't we? We never find a middle way. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you for your positive comments, like you say, and hi there from all over the world. I see you coming in, Hong Kong. God knows what it's like there now. I don't think China did you a lot of good. I will do some more about India too, because I've been thinking about there's something I feel imminent with India, so I'll be working on some of that and see if it comes to me. You know, I have to wait until it comes with these predictions in so many ways. You know, people think, oh, you can ask me, tell me this, Craig, tell me that. And I can't always do that. I have to kind of wait for it to appear to me. And I can hear the rain hitting the roof of my ear. The rain is coming. So there may be more predictions are on their way soon. So I do thank you all for joining me here today. And if you enjoy it, go and get one of my books too, because I do love chatting to you all. But you could curl up with one of my nice new cups, right? Coffee with Craig cups. Get one of my books and read all about the future and all about the things that me and Jane have done, with a little bit of humor thrown in sometimes, and some of the strange stories of the things that have happened to us. Anyway, the Be Happy is one of my favorite ones at the moment. My latest one. Here's a little clip about it. So see you soon, guys. Bye for now. Well, my latest book is called Be Happy. This is all about my trip to India, particularly to see Sharavana Baba and some of the extraordinary things I discovered there. But it's also a bit of an adventure story as well, because it tells the story of how the Indian oracle, the NAADI, showed me how to save the life of my grandson. So it's a very poignant and very important book to me. And I think you'll enjoy the kind of spiritual adventure of it in some ways. And also some of the uplifting stuff about how to be happy in this somewhat unpleasant world sometimes. So it's quite a hopeful book. It's a book that I think you can learn a lot from if you're into the spiritual path.